live from Surprise in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1966. It was a very good year. Gone too soon. Strange and unusual causes of death. Now, you're probably thinking, why would I even think of a topic like that? Because there are some very strange, it's Wacky Wednesday. It's Wild Wacky Wednesday. So, we're going to talk about some unusual ways that people have died, unfortunately. And there are some wild and wacky stories out there. I have a list. So, shall we start? And some people go, but, yes, my husband passed over 7 years ago, and we're coming up on our wedding anniversary, which is a week from Saturday. Will be our, what are we in 2024? It'll be our 26th wedding anniversary on the 28th. And so, yes, I am sensitive to people passing and dying and things like that. I've just had friends who have recently lost loved ones in the last few months. So I am very sensitive to all of that. But sometimes you need to have a laugh. And sometimes causes of death on a death certificate can be very entertaining. Coroner's reports can be very entertaining. You've heard the story. If you haven't heard yet, my second great-grandfather was fell off a barge in the Clutha River in New Zealand in May. He wasn't found until August. So when was his death date to start with? When they pulled his body out of the water and recovered him, and he went into May, which would have been fall or autumn for us, and he wasn't found until August, which is the beginning of the ending of summer, beginning of springtime. More in the winter, you're still in the winter time though, but spring's starting to come through. And then they found his body back in August, and then they took him down to the local pub, laid him out across the tables, which in those days, pubs and taverns were used for the community center, the school, the church, the drinking, community activities, including court cases and coroner inquests. And that was one of the ones there. And my mother and I are sitting in the National Archives. It's got that Effie girl. She's just got back from the vet. So, she had her checkup today. So we'll talk about that later. My mum and I went and we looked in the card catalogs and went through. We found the information we needed. We put in the form so they could bring out the big book, and they did bring out a big book. This thing was, like about this big. And the stuff and all the information was on there. And then we asked for a copy, and they did give us a copy of. Sorry, I've got fluff or dog fur in my. There we go. We're done. And we got copies of the coroner's report. But it was while we were reading the coroner's report that we caused a disturbance in the National Archives, because in there it was when one of his workmates was able to identify the body. Because remember, this body's been in the water since May. It's now August. That's May, June, July, August. 4 months. 4 months. And his workmate was able to identify the body because of the boots on his feet. And they wanted to know what was so special about the boots on his feet. And they were made specifically to go around the corns on his feet, which my mother and I were just in one of those moods where we got the giggles. It was a serious, it's a very quiet. It was that dusty, musky smell of books and paper, and even though we had fluorescent lights overhead, it was kind of dim in there, and you almost felt like you were in the basement of a basement storage area. But I think we were like on the first or second floor of this building, and then you said you have ground floor, then first floor, then second floor. Okay, so here in the States, we're equivalent to second or third floor. Just put you into context. And it was just quiet and dusky. And this is before they moved to their new building. And I remember being in there. It was so quiet that we had to whisper on a whisper. We had to get so quiet that we literally had to talk into each other's ears to be able to hear each other. We couldn't sit face to face and talk. We literally had to whisper in each other's ears. When we were reading this report, we got to the bit about the boots, and we just started laughing. We got the giggles. My mum and I, we got the giggles. I mean, even when we were out of there walking back to the car, we just started roaring with laughter as we're walking down the street. We get out of the building, and it's like as soon as our foot left that last step to get out of the building, we just started laughing as we're walking down the street. All we could think about were boots made to go around corns on feet. That's all we could think about and laugh about. It was hilarious. So yeah, there are sometimes death can bring a little humor into things. There are people who I want to be this person at the end. At the end, I just want to slide in at the end and go, wow, what a ride. I want to live life to its fullest. This is why we created Before the Dirt Nap, so you could live your best life now, was for this reason, was to, basically now I just don't give a crap what people think about me. I used to worry about that, and it used to stop me from doing a lot of things. Since Brad's passed and I've kind of found my feet again, I just really don't give a crap what other people think about me. You either hate me or you don't, and I don't care. I will love those who love me, and if you don't, and I will love those who hate me. I don't care. So, to those who send me negative comments and things, you're welcome to have your voice. You can be heard. I don't care. You're wasting your breath if you're sending me anything that turns around and says, oh, you didn't like my shirt. You didn't think I should be wearing this, that, and the other thing. My hair's getting too long and da-da-da-da-da. My makeup's not done correctly. I don't care. Okay? I'm me. I am who I am. Take it or leave it. That's it. What you see here is what I'm like every day. All day, every day. That's me. So, and if you don't like the saying super fantastic and sparkling, you need to go get a checkup. Anyway, so life is too short to be serious, people. It is too short. And so we can find humor in death. There are some people who knew that they were going to be passing and actually planned their own funerals. They planned to have a living funeral, which was people coming and basically saying their goodbyes and hearing people sharing stories about them. Then there were those who didn't want that, but they wanted everybody to have a party afterwards. I know one of Brad's things was, and we put this, when Brad passed, we put out there that nobody was to wear a suit and tie. Brad was not a suit and tie person. He didn't like wearing them. He hated wearing them. He liked wearing polo shirts and khaki pants. Khaki. I'm trying to remember how to say it so you guys understand. The tan pants. And that was his thing. And so we had warned people beforehand, anybody shows up in a tie, a pair of scissors will be produced. And that tie will get cut off. we were having no holes, but I know I get to the chapel there at the cemetery, and I suddenly go, oh crap. And the woman from the funeral place says to me, goes, what? I says, I forgot the scissors. She goes, why is that? I said, we've told people if they turn up in a tie, we're cutting their tie off. And she's like, oh, let me go see if I can find you a pair. So she ran off and found us a pair of scissors. Nobody turned up with a tie on. Not that I saw anyway, but nobody turned up with a tie on, which was awesome. People some were wearing dress shirts that were open collared and they were in a suit, and that was fine. There was no ties. That was the biggest thing. We didn't want any ties. We just wanted people to dress casually. And this is how Brad would have dressed. He was in his coffin in his USC polo shirt and his tan pants. Is what he was buried in. It was one of his favorite outfits to wear. And USC being his University of Southern California being his favorite college that he actually attended and stuff. So I wanted to make sure that he had something that he loved that he was wearing. So even I thought about it afterwards, I thought maybe I should have put the better looking pair of tan pants in there, because his ones afterwards, when I thought about it, I thought, I think those ones had frayed cuffs at the bottom, but they were his favorite pair. He wore them all the time. So there you go. And also, if you ever come across his headstone, across the bottom it says, today is always super fantastic and sparkling. I told him if I went before him, I wanted that on my headstone. And he just looked at me and went, aha. I said, if you don't, I'm going to come back and haunt you. So now it's on his headstone that I will share with him when I eventually go. So let's go. We're all going to die at some point. How are we going to die? We don't know. We can't foretell. Some people will know because it's illness related. Other people who are healthy, no clue. You could go in any number of ways. And so I have to tell you some of the so here are some of the strangest causes of death, which are on actual death certificates. And we will even give you some examples of these. But ways that you can find out how people died is look for death certificates, coroner's reports, or newspaper articles who may have written up a story about it, because it might have been an event that happened, and some of them you will see. You can check historical records for context about these strange causes like industrial accidents or natural disasters, and research how society or cultural norms at the time may have contributed to the unusual deaths. And for example, the popularity of tight corsets where they were so tight the woman couldn't breathe and they ended up passing out because they couldn't breathe. They simply could not breathe because their corset was tied too tight. Or toxic household products was another one. In fact, we're going to talk about one of those because, okay, so some of the strange causes of death on actual death certificates are things like kicked by a cow. So, and it was very common in rural areas where farming accidents were a real danger. Struck by lightning. An ancestor with this cause of death might have had a dramatic story tied to their community's law. So maybe you might find a story about that in a newspaper. Overexertion from dancing. When they used to have dance marathons or festive events that sometimes went for days, it led to people getting exhausted or even dying from exhaustion or dying from heart attacks from the exertion. Poisoning from green wallpaper. And I thought, that's an interesting one. So I went and researched that one further. Death by green wallpaper. It said arsenic-based green pigment was used in wallpaper in the 19th century. When damp, it emitted toxic fumes. Napoleon's death on St. Helena in 1821 has been speculated to be related to the prolonged exposure of this wallpaper in his living quarters. There you go. If you're related to Napoleon Bonaparte, then death by green wallpaper was his cause of death. I tell you. A fright from an eclipse. Documented cases of people literally being scared to death during celestial events. And if you think about the solar eclipse, when the solar eclipse, it goes dark in the middle of the day just for those few minutes as the moon crosses the sun's path. Those used to scare people. I tell you, back in the day, there used to be all sorts of superstitions and everything else, and people would get frightened by the moon crossing in front of the sun, causing a blackout, and they literally died from fright. Yeah. Accidentally swallowed a toothpick. Believe it or not, this used to be more common when wooden toothpicks were prevalent. And I thought, when wooden toothpicks are prevalent, we still have wooden toothpicks today. We do. Fell into a vat of beer. I actually have on an ancestors report somewhere, and I can't remember if it's on my family or Brad's family, but that fell into a vat of beer and drowned was actually on one of the death certificates in one of our family trees. I can't remember which one. I've got to go back and find that one. But breweries or factory workers occasionally met in this unfortunate fate by falling into a vat of beer, a vat of liquid of some sort, or having some type of industrial accident. The death by corset was over-tight corsets, sometimes causing fainting, broken ribs, or internal injuries because they were so tight. And you see some of these on some of the movies and things, how they used to tighten them. Sometimes the maid would put the knee in the lower back of the person to pull more on the laces to get that tightness in there. The person who was in the corset would be hanging onto a bedpost and trying to not follow the laces as they were pulled. And yeah, you got broken ribs, internal injuries that would then lead to them. Laughed to death. I'm just like, I saw this one and I thought, if I go out laughing to death, that's it. But rare cases exist of individuals laughing uncontrollably, leading to heart failure or asphyxiation. I will tell you this, if I get a really good belly laugh going, I have to be very, very careful with this because this could happen to me. But I have to be extremely careful with this. Because sometimes when I am laughing, I forget to breathe. And then I would start coughing. Brad used to recognize as soon as it was happening, and he would and all I could hear was him going, "Breathe, Helen, breathe. Breathe, Helen, breathe." He would be yelling that at me. And just him yelling it at me was enough of a shock to bring me out of whatever state I was in and to try and calm myself down so I could get that breath in that I needed to get in. So yes, there are cases of people who have laughed so uncontrollably that it's led to heart failure or asphyxiation because they couldn't breathe. They were laughing so hard they could not breathe. So yes, that is a very real one. Explosion of a still. Moonshiners or distillers occasionally lost their lives when their operations went kaboom. Sorry, I just had this scene come up from one of the books. I have this really cool author. Jaina De Leon. She is amazing. She has this really cool series. It's called the Misfortune Mystery Series, and it's about Fortune Redding is this character who used to be a Black Ops CIA operative, and because of the bounty on her head, her boss hides her at his niece's great aunt's place. And I was trying to figure out, well, would that be at his sister's place? I think it was. I'm trying to remember how the relationship worked. But anyway, she had to go in and pretend to be the niece of this great aunt who was coming in to inventory the property. A great aunt had passed away, so she's coming in to inventory the thing. And the actual niece was actually going to go there to do this, but he ended up sending his niece on a trip to Europe so he could put his operative there in hiding in this little town called Sinful, Louisiana. It wasn't far from New Orleans. And remember, Black Ops operative for the CIA. And her role in this was to be a former beauty queen who is now a school librarian. Just let me put that picture into your head. Yes, and there in one of the books, there is a distillery, a moonshiner's distillery that goes kaboom on one of the islands in the bayou. And it was just there's this whole hilarious scene that goes around it. But I will tell you this, those books are laugh out loud hilarious. Yes, great mysteries, great suspense in there as well. But some of the things that the characters get in that book get up to, or some of the events that happen, yeah, all of these things that we have mentioned could quite easily happen in Sinful, Louisiana to anybody. So yeah, explosions of a still could be on a death certificate. Choked on a peach pit. Eating habits or accidents with food often lead to tragic yet peculiar endings, especially when you get something stuck in your throat. Like if you inhale at the wrong moment, you have one of those coughing fits. Sometimes you inhale and you can't do those coughing fits because you can't get any air on it because your airway is blocked by a peach pit, a plum stone, anything. Children, you got to watch them with peanuts, that sort of thing, because those little things will get into their lungs and stuff. So you got to watch that sort of thing too. Another one, run over by a cart pulled by pigs. You had unusual animal-related accidents, especially in rural communities, were not unheard of. So who are some of the, and so I was like thinking, okay, I need some real life examples for this. So I went searching, and we talked about the Green Wallpaper with Napoleon Bonaparte. Choked on a toothpick. Gouverneur Morris in 1816, one of the founding fathers of the United States, reportedly died from an infection caused by using a whalebone as a makeshift catheter. Although unrelated to toothpicks, it's a testament to unusual self-treatment leading to death. Laughed to death was Chrysippus from ancient Greece. He was a Greek philosopher, allegedly died from laughing after giving wine to a donkey and joking about it trying to eat figs. Why would you give wine to a donkey? In 1814 in London, a massive vat of beer burst at the Moe and Company Brewery in London, unleashing a tidal wave of beer that destroyed homes and killed 8 people. Yes, corset tightening death, multiple instances. Tight lacing corsets in the Victorian era, sometimes called suffocation, broken ribs, or internal injuries. While many deaths went unrecorded, there are accounts in Victorian literature and coroner's reports. Struck by lightning, James Otis Jr. in 1783, an American revolutionary leader, died when struck by lightning while standing in the doorway during a storm. Yes. Dancing deaths. The dancing plague of 1518. In Strasbourg, which is modern-day France, a dancing plague saw people dancing for days, while some collapsing and dying from exhaustion or heart attacks. Run over by a pig cart in Victorian era. Historical records from rural England mention individuals being accidentally run over by animal-pulled carts, including pigs or donkeys. The fright from the eclipse. In 1870, obituary in the United States attributed the death of a woman to fright caused by an eclipse. Superstition about celestial events were common at the time. So where will you find these amazing, interesting, unusual causes of death? Death certificates. Look in the cause of death area on the death certificate. Coroner's report often include detailed descriptions of accidents. Newspaper archives, obituaries, or articles sometimes explain unusual deaths. Community records, diaries, or letters might provide colorful antidotes about such incidences. So those are just some of the things that people have died from in the past. And so then my question for you, I have to find my question now. Where did I put my question? What's the most unexpected or hilarious discovery you've made about your ancestors and their passing? So that is it from us for today. So go out, check those death certificates, check those coroner's report, have a look at a coroner's report. I tell you, coroner's reports are fascinating to read. They are absolutely brilliant. If you want to ever be like I guess a mystery writer or something, check out coroner's reports, because they actually have testimonies in there and things like that about how a person was identified, what led up to their passing, how was their body, if their body disappeared, how was it found, if somebody was murdered, there'll be the coroner's inquest for that. How did the murder occur? There'll be the court cases if it was a murder. I tell you, history is full of so many incredible stories, and some of those incredible, amazing stories could be right in your own family tree. So let's go dig. With that, we are out of here. We'll be back tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. Have a super fantastic, sparkling evening, and go check out those causes of death on your ancestors' on death certificates, and also check out newspapers from around the time that they passed to see what events were going on that they may have been involved in that might have been the cause of their death. Check for coroner's reports to see, they'll be in your maybe in the probate packets, but check for coroner's reports on your ancestors. Like I said, newspaper articles. So even some tombstones will have some hilarious stuff on there, and they may include the cause of death, especially if it was unusual. So with that, have a super fantastic, sparkling evening, and we'll catch you back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. Hey, konara.